Hello everybody and welcome back to the Family Meal Podcast. My name is Grace. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today we have a very special guest. That is my mom. Hello Mom. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello Grace. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So today, I didn't tell you anything about really what we're doing today. No. I had this great idea. I don't know if you've seen this trend on the internet, but it's like celebrities read mean tweets. And I kind of in my head had like, oh, I'll have an executive chef read mean OpenTable reviews.
Okay.
So just for those of you who don't know, I know I've mentioned before on this podcast, my mother is an executive chef. I tend to work with her. I work in her restaurant. So Mom, maybe you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the audience.
I am the executive chef and the general manager of a restaurant that is trying to make things work in the time of COVID. And, love what I do. Been cooking for years, and owned and operated my own restaurant as well for a while. But now I am working for a nonprofit, running their restaurant for them.
What kind of food do you like to make, Mom? What's your
What do
style?
I like to make?
Well, what's your style?
Oh, my style. Well, I like to be inspired by something. So whether it's the season or the atmosphere of what's happening that night, or anything else, I just love to take something like that and run with it.
Lovely. So yeah, I was gonna, in my head, I was like, oh, I'll have her read mean OpenTable reviews, but to your credit, there's like very few that are recent and relevant, and I know all of them you have read and have like laughed at hysterically, or said some
cried.
choice, or but I did think it would still be kind of fun to like, we'll touch on a few kind of vaguely, and then maybe we would address some nice OpenTable reviews too, to kind of call it even,
Okay.
So, just because I think it'll kind of spur, a lot of conversations I know we've had in the restaurant about, how we're doing things and how procedures have changed. So let's, we'll start on a nice note. This one was actually recent. I don't know if you saw this one. Our family had a wonderful outdoor dining experience here. Everything we ate and drank was delicious, and the service was top-notch, including our server carrying our food all the way out to the top of the stairs at the side door while we moved our table due to rain, while also juggling an umbrella. This was the first restaurant experience since the pandemic began. We went thinking it would be a one-time special occasion for us, and now we want to return as soon as we can. We would like to try one of the live cabaret evenings, but note that you can still get your show tunes, blah, 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 on the quiet. We felt completely safe COVID-19 wise, which was important to us, but you can also do curbside pickup, and so it's a great way to support this organization.
Great.
So yeah, what did you that was obviously the other night when it was pouring rain. I was the server juggling the umbrella. Literally juggling the umbrella. But what do you think about that? And, they were talking about safety, right? So what do you think about, I know COVID has obviously changed everything, but talk a little bit about your experience in terms of people's safety in the restaurant.
Well, it's all so interesting because this is new in every perspective to us. Not only opening a restaurant outside, so there are new physical logistics to deal with, including carting tables in and out on a daily basis. Of course, we're at the mercy of the weather. And we have all these safety issues that we also have to address, and there's nothing to look at to say, oh, we'll do what they did, because it's new to all of us. So it was like opening a new restaurant when we decided to do the outdoor dining, but with no map to follow,
right,
and nothing to look at for a frame of reference. So everything had to be created. Some of it was by trial and error. Some of it was error. But, you live and you learn, and you hope that people are, and for the most part have been, just appreciative that we're making the effort to do it right and, keep them safe. And, given the governor's guidelines, I took those, but I think that we went above and beyond all those guidelines as far as what we're doing at the restaurant. Trying to be on the other side as someone who's coming out, and what would make me feel safe, because we want people to come back.
Right. And that's actually kind of a running theme among a lot of these reviews. A lot of them say the safety protocols were above and beyond what I expected, were above what other restaurants are doing. So a lot of people have felt, someone said, we greatly appreciated all the COVID precautions, felt surprisingly comfortable dining out for the first time since quarantine began. So I think we've definitely done that. Okay, this one's great. You'll love this one. This one from somebody from just a couple days ago said, everything about the food and service was great. They gave you 4 out of 5 stars. Everything about the food and service was great. The only negative is the chairs were very uncomfortable.
You just can't do everything.
You can't do everything. I didn't even see that one until just now. Okay.
I wonder which chairs they were sitting in.
Probably the metal ones.
The outdoor chairs.
I gotta think it's the metal ones, because the other ones are normal chairs, and we've never had to complain about the normal chairs. Okay. We love people. We'll do this one. I know we've talked about this instance because this was a couple nights ago with the man who we charged for context. We have certain nights we have live entertainment at our restaurant, and we usually we have a price fixed for dinner, and then there's an additional cover charge, quote unquote, because you're seeing the entertainment that night.
That's rolled into that dinner charge.
Right. So it's kind of, if you were just dining there, you would say, oh, that's the price. And you wouldn't maybe know that, although I think it does say it on the menu, there is that includes
the entertainment,
a cover charge, and you just might not know how much that is right off the bat. But I think I even mentioned this in my last episode. There was 2 parents who brought 2 young children, and they were, technically 3 young children. Yeah, one was an infant, but 2, they were a table of 4, shall we say, and they were offended that they were charged really only 1 additional cover charge to cover their 2 children who took up seats at the restaurant. How do you I already know how you feel about it, but how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about the kind of feelings people are having about the changing of status quos, sort of a thing? That's obviously new, right? It's not normal to just kind of go out to our restaurant and there's a price fix. Part of that is a cover charge. How do you feel about how you've been seeing people respond to changes of rules in a lot of ways? We've talked about it a little bit in other contexts.
I mean, people are very, very used to sort of being spoon-fed everything that they need to know, mm-hmm. and assuming the rest. This is a whole new world, and you cannot take anything for granted. I mean, those people specifically that you talked about made a reservation online. They did not call. Now, I spend probably as many hours of my day cooking as I do answering the phone and fielding numerous questions from people, because this is a new thing for us. This is a new thing for them. They have lots of questions. Well, how does it work? And when does the entertainment start? And what nights do you have entertainment? So that's fine. That's what I do. I answer their questions. If you have any questions, or if your finances are limited and perhaps you're not prepared to spend, it is up to you to make the effort to find out what is the situation. How much does it cost? You're bringing children to a restaurant. You should have known right off the bat when we didn't offer a children's menu that maybe this isn't appropriate for children, and that we even we're able to accommodate, because we're a very small restaurant, and the food that you see on the menu is all the food I have in my house. There's no chicken nuggets lying around. We don't have them. If it's not on my menu, we don't have it. So that we were even able to accommodate those children was fortunate. But it is you taking up a seat, taking up 2 seats that we could have sold at full price. And we only charged you half price for the entertainment and didn't get any money got very little money for the food. But a fraction of, so basically each of those seats cost him $25 that we could have gotten $70 for. And I thought that we were being accommodating, And he was furious that, that he was charged for that. So, again, all I can say is do your due diligence. If you're going out to eat, if you, even pre-COVID days, if you could walk into any restaurant and say, I need something gluten-free, I need something, with no nuts, I need, whatever it is, and that might not have been a problem, you can't assume that right now. We are all struggling to stay alive financially. Pricing in all restaurants has changed. Some of my favorite restaurants I'm seeing, that used to be able to go in and have a drink and have a couple of appetizers, just for fun. They don't do that anymore because they have only 25% of the seats that they can get inside and have outside. They need to get every dollar out of those seats. You'll see a lot of restaurants doing prefix outside now because they need to maximize the dollar value of those seats for themselves. And that's not being greedy. That's just to stay alive.
That's for survival.
That's right.
Truly. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about, we're obviously a small kitchen. We're a small crew. I get this every time I'm out on the floor. Someone's like, well, don't you have... And it's like, no.
A steak back there?
Don't you have something hiding back there? It's like, no. But... And I know that was always true for us, but I know it's especially true now. It's like, no, I don't just buy food, in case somebody orders. Yeah. I know that you've talked a lot about how food costs have increased for you. The whole supply chain is affected by COVID,
That's
right?
right.
So it's not even just your prices, a customer might see, oh, this place's prices have gone up. It seems, even like what you just said, it seems greedy, but it's like, no, A, I'm maximizing money, but B, my costs have gone up as a chef, right? Suddenly it's way more expensive to buy, X, Y, and Z. We talked about it with butter.
Yeah.
Butter has gone up.
And not only that, not only has my price gone up, but now some of my purveyors are saying, you know what, we're not delivering unless it's a $500 order or more. Or we don't split cases anymore. You got to take a whole case. So we have to be really, carefully editing what we put on the menu. So what I can give my guests, that's the best quality, the freshest product. I have to really, handpick.
Now let's talk about something, because this just made me think of it. This is not a complaint I saw on OpenTable, but it's one I know we get plenty of times. Everybody's favorite topic of conversation: substitutions, right? And I know it's a bone that you have to pick with certain people when they say, can't I get the short ribs with the sweet potatoes from the salmon dish? Can't I mix and match these things and make a Frankenstein plate? And you go, absolutely not.
Absolutely
Talk a little bit about that. I know that doesn't really have to do with COVID, but it's an important perspective that I like hearing you talk about.
So there's a number of reasons for this from my perspective. Number one, again, we are a very small kitchen. When we have, in general times, when we know it's a busy night, we have 70 people coming in for dinner, we know from past experience, because we actually track these things, well, that means 70 people means we'll probably sell about 25 short ribs. We'll sell about 25 orders of fish. So therefore, the side dishes that accompany those, we are also doing fairly close. Now, not exactly. If somebody comes in and says, I'd like the short ribs, but I can't have the pasta on the side that comes with that because I need something gluten-free. We do need to be able to accommodate that. But as an artiste, I spend a tremendous amount of time working out my menus and my accompaniments and what goes with them. This isn't a diner, okay? This is cuisine. This isn't just food. When I braise my short ribs with maple bourbon, braising liquid, and somebody wants a side of pasta marinara with that,
what?
Heck. And then, with my luck, they'll have the nerve to complain on OpenTable that, the food was awful. Well, you didn't have it like we meant you to have it. And so that's a reason in and of itself not to. And again, we're not a diner. This isn't like you pick and choose your sides. If you have a dietary issue, just tell me I can't have gluten. I will give you something appropriate that has no gluten. But don't tell me what to give you. And if I do it for you, I have to do it for everybody. Well, I don't have a gluten issue, but I don't like mashed potatoes, and I want this instead, and I want that instead. No, please just take the dish as we meant it to be. And you know what? If you never had rutabagas before, maybe you'll like them on this plate because they marry with everything else that's going on that plate. Give it a shot. You're a grown-up, you know? I'm hoping you're not a little kid. Give it a shot. You know, there's still surprises in life sometimes.
Sometimes most unexpected thing can be, like for me, I hated Brussels sprouts until I had Brussels sprouts cooked a way that I really liked them, and then I was like, oh, big fan of Brussels sprouts.
Right.
We're here for Brussels sprouts. This is one I know you've read. Someone who made a notion of their anniversary on OpenTable, and it wasn't acknowledged properly by, the staff, their server, and they were a little bit embarrassed that another table, at one point, we brought out a lovely mini cake for them because it was also their anniversary and we had little sparklers on it, and the reviewer felt very embarrassed that this other table's anniversary was acknowledged in quite a big way, but theirs wasn't acknowledged at all. And I will open with saying, just because you put something in your OpenTable notes does not mean we make no promises, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We have no standard like, oh, if it's your anniversary, we'll give you this or we'll do this. I mean, you're allowed to tell us and we'll be like, oh, happy anniversary.
Yeah. The best that we do, the worst that we do with something, a notation like that in OpenTable is, oh, it's their anniversary. Make sure we put them at a nice table over in the corner or on the side. Don't put them in a heavy traffic area. That's the least we do. Often, my front of house manager will bring out a couple flutes with a little sip of champagne and congratulations, and we don't comp desserts. We don't have balloons and confetti.
I've worked at other places where they have specific plates of desserts that say like happy birthday or happy anniversary, and you know what? It's a lovely thing to do.
It is lovely.
It's great. Go there for your anniversary.
But though that specific night, those people, actually the children called and asked me if I would make a cake for their parents for their anniversary, and they paid for it. Right. So, why you were embarrassed, I have no idea. And again, we don't usually do, we put, a candle or a sparkler in for a birthday or something like that. We don't usually do that for an anniversary. It's not really a candle sparkler kind of apropos thing. I think, like I said, we usually try at best to send out a little sip of champagne for people to have a toast. But that you put that in there expecting something for free, I'm sorry. That's not how we operate. Maybe there are restaurants that do that, and you know what? I know there's people that put that kind of stuff all the time just to get something for free. Right. Anniversary or birthday or not.
It's always someone's birthday.
Sure.
It's always someone's
Give
birthday.
me some cake.
Anything. I'll take anything. No, I know people like that too, now that I think about it, who they always, like, if you go out with the group, they're always like, oh, and it's so-and-so's birthday. I'm like, no, it's not. And they're like, shh. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Get free dessert.
You might get something. I don't know. It's worth a shot.
Fridays does that.
We
don't do that. Yeah. Our desserts are handmade. They're expensive to make, and again, we just don't generally give them out willy-nilly. If you want a dessert, and if it's your birthday, order something for dessert. We'll put a candle in it. The staff usually sings. And also sometimes people put notes like that because they just want a quiet table, and they would die of embarrassment if we came out singing.
That's true. I would die of embarrassment if our front of house manager and some of our staff came out singing for me.
I agree.
Because we are not a very vocally talented bunch, let me just say. I always, when I look at that review, I always think it's like somebody's, they say dinner with my husband. So I always think it's just a wife that's like, why did they get a cake? On what, you didn't call them and tell them to make me? I don't know why I read it that way, but I just sort of feel like that. I hope that's not the case, obviously. This was quite a novel that somebody had posted. And they said they had a lot to say about the musicians, which I think I've already mentioned on this podcast. I felt was kind of unfair. Said a lot about, the servers, in particular, the server who delivered my drink was so shaky that a lot of it spilled onto the tray. I seriously don't think we saw the same server twice. There was a lack of professionalism from the servers, which I feel like one of your biggest gripes about the service was that your server was a little shaky and it spilled on their tray. Like, it didn't spill on your lap. It's a little bit of a, like, okay. You don't know that server. It could have been their first night. I mean, we have a lot of servers who are either new to serving or new to the carriage house. Like,
or it's also 90 degrees and they could have been just ready to pass out.
Right. That is true.
Guys, and it's a long walk. Our setup, it's not just right outside our doors is where you sit. It can be, we have a lot of outdoor space. And if you're at one of the far reaches of that space, even if you're one of the closer reaches, it's not that close. So it can be a long walk.
Especially if you're coming from the bar, our inside bar, and going all the way down to the far end. Like, I'm hot. A lot of that is in direct sun, too. Yeah, I just felt like, and I also never understood the comment, like, I don't think we saw the same server twice, and I was like, so you had a lot of different servers that helped you out, I didn't kind of understand the critique there. I mean, I guess it's like you didn't see your server a lot, but it's like, well, there was also 75 people there, and your server had 5 other tables, and you know what? Maybe you just seemed like you were good, and they were kind of running around like a crazy person, which is common for us.
And, again, in light of COVID, we have had to hire, when we have a busy show night, we have 4 people that are dedicated to things that we never had people dedicated to before.
True.
Actually, there's 5. So there's a food, well, we used to have a food runner, but there's a food runner. There's one person that just manages bathroom, restroom queues. So in other words, you can't have people lining up inside the building waiting to use the restroom.
Which is normal for us because we usually have one single stall restroom. So in previous times, we would have a line like down half the dining room of people waiting to use our one bathroom.
Right. But number one, we can't have them in the building waiting. So when a guest needs to use the restroom, they tell their server, who adds their name to the list. And this one person, manages the list and then goes and gets that person when it's their turn and escorts them in, and then cleans the restroom. So now we have on a busy night, we have a second restroom open in the other building, and so there's somebody that has to manage that. That's the ladies' room. So we have 2 restroom attendants. We just have a ton of people that are, and so
we have 2 hostesses, which we never used to have.
Nope.
We would even rarely have one.
Yeah. And, and sometimes these people, like the restroom attendants, don't really start getting busy until later. I mean, most people don't arrive at a restaurant and have to use the restroom. It's after they've sat and drank and eaten and they want to use the restroom later or before they leave. So in the beginning of the night, some of those restroom attendants might be attending to other things, seating people, clearing dishes, whatever. Right. So yeah, you may not see this. You're going to see a lot of different people during the course of your meal. I mean, hopefully your server who took your order is probably the same person that brought you your drinks. Not the same person necessarily that brought you your food, because that's the food runner's job. Hopefully they checked back and said, how are you enjoying everything tonight? And, can I get you any coffee and dessert at the end and bring you your bill? But you're going to see a lot of, there's going to be someone coming and filling your water glasses. Right. There's a lot of different people with a lot of different jobs. Again, we employed a whole lot of college kids this summer, which was great.
Right.
But this is all new to us, and is it the worst thing in the world that you had all these people? I mean, were you waiting for somebody to take your order or to bring you a bill?
Right.
Because otherwise, that's what you're complaining about.
Yeah, it's for me, it's just like, if I'm your server, but another staff member went and filled you water, as a customer, I would have felt like, oh, that's very nice. That this person came around, they were filling waters, and they came and filled mine, and I'm not their table. That's nice of you. Like, oh, I'm glad my water is refilled. I don't know. It just was a very, weird kind of a...
And I know that you've talked about gratuities. I mean, we are a pool house. So that everybody looks in on you. A server walking by may see you kind of looking around and say, is everything okay? Can I get you something? They may not be your server, but it is their job to make sure that you're happy as a guest.
They did say they felt promptly forgotten about. That was what they said. We were given menus and then promptly forgotten about. So I'll say that. But I think it's funny when people say they're forgotten about, because sometimes I'm like, well, does it mean no one came to you when you first sat down? Was it that somebody came to you and you asked for things and you never got them? I'm always just like...
And, listen, again, given our setup, and every night it's a different setup based on the number of people there to get maximum space between the tables. So in other words, our maximum capacity is about 75, 80. You know, if we only have 60 people coming, we don't put all those tables out so that there's more space for you between the tables, so your safety measures are increased. You know, so the stations, in other words, the server tonight, no, you've got these 4 tables, and last night they had only 3 of those 4 tables and one over here, and you know, it changes. And yes, you know, we're not without error. Sometimes things fall through the cracks, tables fall through the cracks. They didn't realize, oh, that's in my station, and so they were left for a few minutes. And again, we just ask for a little bit of patience, or just say to somebody, could you please find our server? We're ready to order.
Right. We had a situation the other night where I had a table that was kind of like, seemed a little perturbed. They weren't my table, but they seemed a little perturbed about something, and they said, you know, we have not been able to get the attention of our server. Could you get somebody to clear our entree dishes for us? They were clearly done. And I was like, well, let me just do it. So I started taking it. But I knew that they had been served and were very friendly with another server who was there that night. And so I went to that server and I was like, go gloss this over. Like, go make it better. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he did. He went over and he's like, oh, don't I know you guys? And they were like, oh, it's our friend. And, you know, that made it seemed like they were like, okay, after that. You know, they kind of, that glossed it over. But, you know, I think that's a wonderful thing to have in the ecosystem of your restaurant. That your servers all help each other out.
Right.
You know, that this server, even though this was not gonna, I mean, it was gonna benefit him because it increases the tips in our tip pool. Mm-hmm. You know, he was just like, of course I'll go and make this better for the other server whose table it actually is.
Right.
Because it benefits all of us. Right. You know, and it gave them a better experience instead of just like they felt forgotten about and they had to flag somebody down to get my, you know, whatever.
Right.
I think people do tend to like that about our restaurant. You know, you have a lot of people who, like, they know the service staff, you know. Mm-hmm. Oh, what about the woman who said, was that your normal service staff or were they stage hands? I was like, that you think stage hands, like, could just be servers, and as if, like, servers could also just be stage hands, and those aren't completely different jobs.
Ay, ay, ay.
That was funny.
That's pretty funny.
That was like, and I couldn't believe that one because I was like, she's like, oh, I've been there before and it looked like different people. I'm like, when were you last here? Like, yeah, there's some people who are missing and some new people, but like, the manager's the same. Like,
and everybody's got a freaking mask on. How can you recognize anybody?
That's true. That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that was a good one. I felt bad. I was like, I don't know if that's insulting to me or if it's insulting to stagehands or who it's insulting to.
Insulting to everybody.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions I have for you, Mom. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
And of course.
Thank you for joining the podcast. Do you have any closing remarks for people as they venture out into the world and into restaurants again?
Venture out, people. For your sanity, you need to start just taking little snippets back and starting to piece your life back together again in little increments. And listen, if you don't feel comfortable in any restaurant, personally, if you were to walk into my restaurant and say, oh my God, I do not feel safe here, please tell us, you know, well, what is it that would make you feel safe? And I think any restaurant would say the same thing. If you're not comfortable with the spacing, you know, I know a lot of restaurants don't have the luxury of space that we have. They are supposed to be 6 feet apart. That's back a chair to back a chair. That's not center a table to center a table. So if you don't feel comfortable, just say, you know what, I'm really not comfortable in this situation. I'm sorry, we're not going to stay. Mm-hmm. You know, you're the one taking your mask off, not us. So you need to feel very comfortable with the situation you're putting yourself in.
Right. And that being said, you know, make that heard, you know, and if, I think it's fair to say if a restaurant says, we hear you, then maybe that's a good place to go back to, give a second shot. And if they say like, yeah, well, you know, them's the breaks, kid, then, you know, maybe that's not a place you want to spend your money. You know, there is a little bit of the market will take control here, the places that do a really good job. I mean, even that was the one comment I read that said, we were just going to do this for a one-time thing, but now we would be back knowing what they're doing and how well they're doing it. That's reassuring to us in what we're doing, but I'm sure that's scary to some other people who are cutting corners. It's like, oh crap, people are coming here not feeling safe and then not coming back.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, do please support the restaurant industry from all aspects. It has been a very trying time for us as well. And if you're not comfortable going out, lots of places to do in curbside pickup. It's a great way to support us, and us as in all restaurants. And because we want to be here when things come back to normal. And you can see already restaurants are kind of falling off one at a time right now, and we could be in for a very, very long winter if indoor dining doesn't come back, or if indoor dining comes back with something like 25% capacity. Most restaurants can't survive on that. Right. So please do what you can if you're at all inclined to keep the industry thriving.
Well,
thank you.
And thank you. Well, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to the Family Meal Podcast. Please venture out, please be brave, and please continue to support local restaurants. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.